September 11th, Kirill Kaprizov was offered an 8-year, $128 million contract extension. That's the biggest contract in NHL history. Yes, more than Alex Ovechkin's big deal when he was a rookie. Kovachuk's 15-year deal. It's also the highest annual salary in NHL history. Leon Draisaitl's 14. This one will come out to $16 million a year, and Kirill Kaprizov said no. There's multiple reasons and speculations and rumors as to why. Elliot Friedman thinks that there could be some rumors circling around that a team is willing to pay 18, 19, maybe even 20 fucking million dollars a year for the Wild superstar. There's also other rumors about term. With the salary cap constantly rising, term is becoming a major factor. Players don't want to sign that big extension right away. They know they can make more, aka Matthews. Sign for 3-4 years, make as much money as possible. Again, he turned down one of the biggest deals in NHL history. So, as a degenerate I am, like others out there, I made a few trade packages because it's that rising discussion of if your star player, even though you have a chance to win, if your star player is not willing and tells you that he will not re-sign with you, you have to get as much as you can, the biggest haul you can, picks, players, roster, whatever you can do to trade him. So do I think it's going to happen? Unlikely, but again, like I said, as a degenerate I am, I came up with some trade packages, did some research, and let's get into it.
Fakes left, now taken off. Gonna run for it, got it! There it goes! 6 on the 10 to 5! Oh, the play of the year in the NFL!
So, the trade packages I'm going to go through, there's going to be 8 teams. The first one is going to be the very least likely and borderline just not going to happen. And then I'm going to go through and they're going to get more and more likely as I see fit, in my opinion. And then the last team is something that gets me excited. And seeing that deal, I think it works best for both sides. But let's break it down. Before we get into this, for the purpose of this trade or for these trade packages, I will be assuming that it's a sign and trade for Kirill Kaprizov. It's hard to kind of base these trades off rental options. And I'm not going to do 8-year by $18 million extension or plus because that's just outrageous. I don't think a lot of teams, I think at the end of the day, even though what Elliot Friedman says, I just don't think that's realistic, especially if McDavid signs for $16 million a year. But I'm going to go off the basis of a 4-year, $16 million extension for Kirill Kaprizov. It's right in that range of what McDavid's making. It's still a lot of money short term, so we can still cash in when he's around 30 years old. So let's get into it. Before we get started, please comment, like, subscribe to Buds Mafia on YouTube, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Go follow Buds and Pucks on Twitter, Instagram, X, all that good stuff. Help me out. This video took a long time. I appreciate it. Now let's get into the good stuff. So for this video, we're going to base all these trades off a trade that happened very similarly years ago, and that's the Jack Eichel trade. Very similar players, young superstars trying to get out or potentially get out for Kirill Kaprizov. Again, this is all speculation of their team that drafted them, and the team was willing to offer a haul. And again, at the time, obviously right now we can say Vegas won that trade for Jack Eichel, but at the time it seemed like all the pieces were there in the trade. It turned out to be, or at least was looking like it was going to be all right. So for the Jack Eichel trade, Vegas acquired Jack Eichel, where Buffalo acquired a solid, I'd say B to B plus prospect in Peyton Krebs, who was a first round pick, so you could argue that's value as a first round pick. Alex Tuch, above average top 6 winger. I mean, right now, he's like an 80-point, 70-point player. So above average top 6 player and a first round pick. That's kind of the value that we're looking at for this trade because they're very similar players in very similar situations. The only difference in those situations is Jack Eichel was already signed onto a contract, so he didn't sign an extension. That's why these trades are a bit different. I do think Kirill Kaprizov is better at this point in time than Jack Eichel was in Buffalo, but very similar players, and that's kind of the trade we're going to base off of for these trades. So let's get in the first one. This is a degenerate Leaf podcast, and that's the news that we like to talk about. So, of course, the first trade package will be with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, do I think this is going to happen? No. Do I even want this to happen? No. But it's fun and may piss some people off seeing Kaprizov in a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. The trade is this. To Minnesota, William Nylander, who has 7 more years at 11.5 million AAV and a 2027 second round pick, and obviously to Toronto, Kirill Kaprizov, and then immediately signs a 4-year, $16 million contract. So this works right off the hop because Kirill Kaprizov right now makes $9 million and William Nylander makes 11.5. So we would be saving obviously 2.5 million AAV this year in cap space. As of now, the Leafs have around $1.92 million in cap space with this extension. So next offseason, the Leafs will have around just under $25 million in cap space. 24.85 to be exact, according to Puckpedia. All these salaries are going to be according to Puckpedia. Thank you, Puckpedia. You're the best. But next offseason, they will have to sign Stolarz, who makes 2.5. Lawton makes 1.5. Robertson, who makes 1.83. McMahon, 1.35. Michelli, 3.43. And Yarncroke at 2.1. With that, with Kaprizov gaining $7 million in cap space, that will bring the Leafs down to around $16 million in cap space for next season to sign, obviously, Stolarz, Lawton, and these guys. I think that's something they're willing to do, of course. The next season, the Leafs will have around $44 million in cap space. This is before the Kaprizov trade, with guys signing like Waugh, Carlo, and Benoit. And then 28-29 cap space, they have 73.35, and then they have a bit more big dogs to sign. Hoppy, who makes 13.325. Domi, who makes 3.75. Joshua makes 3.25. Lorenz, 1.35. Ekman Larson, 3.5. And Wall at 3.67. So, a lot of Leafs fans are going to be like, why the fuck would we trade Nylander? A lot of these trades I don't necessarily agree with. Again, this is the reason why this is the least likely one. Just in terms of cap space, Toronto doesn't have a lot of cap space, obviously. We'd be losing, obviously, if my math is correct, 16 minus 11.5 is $4.5 million in cap space. That's pretty easy to manage, especially for next season. Let go Yarncroke, let go McMahon. I feel like that Robertson train has just fell off a cliff, so I feel like he would be let go. Looks like Stolarz is already willing to re-sign. This one actually seems easy in terms of cap space. For Minnesota, this is not, they have $4.41 million in cap space at the moment. With this trade, they'll still be in the cap compliant with getting Nylander, because obviously they're going to be gaining 3.5, oh, 2.5, Jesus. So they have no issues at all. And then cap space for the next few years, they have a ton. They're finally off that Suter and Parise deals. Yeah, there's a reason this is the least likely. Again, going back to the Eichel trade, obviously, Nylander is 10 times better than Alex Tuch. I didn't feel like I needed to add a first-round pick because looking at it, Nylander makes 11.5 for 7 more years. So if you're the Wild, you're like, fuck yes, because you have, to me, a superstar at a deal that's just going to keep getting better and better in value. And then you also get a second-round pick. Kaprizov, to me, I'm a Leafs fan, but Kaprizov is obviously better than William Nylander. But you're getting 4 years at more AAV, and then you're getting less cap space to work with. So there's a reason, like I said, this is the least likely. Let's move on to the next team. Now, the next team is the New Jersey Devils, and the trade package is going to be very similar to Toronto. To Minnesota, Jesper Bratt, who has a 7.88 AAV for 5 more years and a 2026 second-round pick. For Kaprizov, same details apply for New Jersey. Again, this is similar to conversation. Do I think Jesper Bratt's better than Nylander? No, I think Jesper Bratt's incredibly underrated. I think he had over 88 points or over 80 points last year. So he's incredibly underrated. I still think Nylander is better, especially what he does in the playoffs. But the reason this trade is basically the exact same is Jesper Bratt is an 80-plus point scorer at under $8 million for 5 more years. So that's incredible value. If you're Minnesota, again, we assume he signs that $16 million contract for 4 years, you're gaining $8 million in cap space that you can do to fool around with. So for the sake of this deal, the Devils have $6.13 million in cap space right now. The only guy they have left to sign is Luke Hughes at RFA. I'm sure they're going to figure out a bridge deal at some point, but a long-term deal with this deal, with the Minnesota deal, would just kind of need to happen. Or I'm sure with the value that Minnesota's getting, they'd be willing to retain some salary for this for that season, just for his last year of his contract. So I'm sure it'll all work out. Next season, they don't have too many guys to sign. Dadonov, Nemec, who that trade may have run off the tracks already, Paul Cotter, and also goaltender Jacob Markstrom. So they'll have $24 million in cap space, so they can definitely fit in that Kirill Kaprizov contract. Cotter will definitely get a pay bump after basically vet minimum. We'll see what Nemec, unless he has a ridiculous third year or whatever, I can't see him making too much. And Dadonov's an easy replaceable type player. And then the following season, there is a lot more players to re-sign in 27-28. They have $62.12 million in cap space, but they will have to sign Nico Hischier, their captain, their star center. Andre Palat, see ya, you're done, you're too old. Mercer makes $4 million. You can kind of maybe make the same or maybe closer to $6 for his production. Stefan Nason makes 2.75. Glass makes 2.5. Dylan makes 4. That's probably a deal you can walk away from. And Seamus Casey, a young defenseman, he's an RFA. He'll definitely want a pay bump, and I feel like he will deserve one. But yeah, again, it's the same situation with the Toronto. It's very unlikely. I think if you're Minnesota, you love this deal. Obviously, if you're New Jersey, you get another stud or again a superstar MVP type player to play with Jack Hughes. But just for Brad at his term, at his value of his contract, that's hard to give up. And yeah, this is the reason, like I said, for the Toronto one as well. There's a reason why this is second last for likeliness. Let's move on to the next team. Now, the next team will be the LA Kings. This is where it starts to get a little more fun. Minnesota would acquire Adrian Kempe, who, as of right now, makes $5.5 million AAV, and he is a free agent like the Kaprizov after this coming season, and he's seeking around 10 plus. Likely a sign and trade. They would have to be a sign and trade for Minnesota to accept this deal, and they would sign him to 8 years at 10 and a half. We'll say in that range. As well as for the trade, it will be a 2026 first round pick and a 2026 second round pick. Fairly equivalent to, again, the Buffalo trade. Again, I feel like Kempe is slightly better than Tuck, or he definitely is better, I would say. But you also get a first, and you don't get that marquee prospect, or at least what Krebs was at the time, but you do also get a second-round pick. Pretty easy in terms of cap space. LA right now has $2.67 million in cap space. They would have to do some moving around for Kaprizov. Again, I'm sure with the value Minnesota is getting, they'd be willing to retain some salary for that last year of Kaprizov's contract, and that could make things work. But the next season in 26-27, Kings will have $33.73 million in cap space. They'll have to, I don't know what the future of Kopitar is, if it's likely retirement, but that's $7 million. Kuzmenko makes 4.3, Perry makes 2, and their star young defenseman, Brant Clark, who is an RFA, will likely get a big pay bump. This is something I think LA could do. Again, it's very unlikely. I think if you're Minnesota, getting a player like Adrian Kempe, who hasn't really cracked into the high 70s, 80s in points, but he's consistently getting 30 to 40 goals every year, performs in the playoffs. You get a first, you get a second. They're not in much cap issue anymore, honestly, at all for the next few years. So, again, this is a weird one, but this is where things start to get interesting. But yeah, still very, very unlikely. But now let's head to the next trade package. Now, this is where I actually start to like the deals. The other ones I don't really like. For honestly, for the teams trading for Kaprizov, they're giving him a lot of value. And they're getting a player who is a superstar, but not on a long-term deal, and you're losing cap space. But again, he is a superstar player. But this is where I really start to like these contracts, or these deals, excuse me. And now it's the New York Rangers. To Minnesota would be Alexis Lafreniere, who makes 7.45 for 5 more years annual. 2026 first round pick, which is from Carolina, and it is top 10 protected, and a 2026 second round pick, which is also from Carolina, from the K'Andre Miller trade. This deal, again, there would have to be some retention for the New York Rangers, because as of right now, they have $778,000 in cap space. They wouldn't need to retain much, but Minnesota, I'm sure, be willing to retain 10-15% of that contract. Next season, the Rangers will have $29 million in cap space. So obviously, but you got to take away 10 of that for Kaprizov, so say around $19 million. And they'll have some moves to make. They have Panarin, who makes 11.64 right now. You have to think, and with Russians, it can be a bit unpredictable, but you have to think he makes less than that. He's still producing numbers, but he's like 34, 35 now. And maybe his fellow countryman comes in, maybe he takes a little less. They'll have Carson Soucy, Brandon Schneider, who can deserve pay bump. Scott Morrow, that one won't be as much because he'll be a rookie this coming season and won't demand too much. And Jonathan Quick, I'm sure they can get on a cheaper deal. And then the following season, they'll have $51.83 million in cap space. And the key players off the sign is Cooley. And that's pretty much it. Some depth players. So, again, I think if you're Kaprizov getting $16 million at AAV to play for the New York Rangers, you have that lavish life. As a New York Ranger, you're treated like a god. You can do anything you want. So, yeah, and in Minnesota, you're getting a player who I still have a lot of faith in. He's still super young. Before he signed that deal, he was lighting up the league. He was getting almost a point per game, and then he signed the deal, and he completely fell off a cliff. But I still have faith in him. He's still super young. This deal can turn out really, really good for them. And as well, you get a first-round pick and a second-round pick. And you just have tons of cap space to work with. I mean, I know Minnesota, it's the state of hockey, but maybe people don't look at it as a hot market. But I think you could drag players there with the future. And this is, again, like I said, this is where I start to like these deals. I'm not sure who would win this trade. Depends if Kaprizov just turns over New York. Panarin signs on a cheap deal or cheaper deal, maybe $9 or $8 million a year, and they tear up the league. But let's move on to the next trade package. So our next package, I absolutely hate this one, but it's something that definitely gets my blood pumping. As a Montreal Canadiens fan, I feel like you do this deal in a heartbeat. And again, I think it works for both sides. So the trade is Patrick Laine to Minnesota, who makes 8.7 for one more year. David Reinbacher, and a 2026 first-round pick and a 2027 first-round pick. People who are wondering, Montreal for their first-round picks for the Dobson deal, they traded two, but they were both in last year's draft. So they still have their future first-round picks. And right now, you're in win-now mode. You're Montreal, you got to the playoffs, and you want to stay there. So now it's fuck the future. You have your future, right? Excuse me, got excited there. You need to now fuck first-round picks. It doesn't matter anymore, right? You're in that stage. And for these teams, they're kind of similar both Montreal. They're in the playoffs just about. You have your prospects. You don't need more. You don't want to keep being shitty and missing the playoffs and getting a 15th overall pick. These first-round picks don't matter anymore, and you're getting a player like Kirill Kaprizov to maybe even play with Demidov, which is just getting my blood boiling, and I'm scared for the league if that happens. This deal, like I said, is very easy for both sides. Montreal right now has $4.57 million in cap space. You're trading Laine, who makes 8.7. Kaprizov makes 9, so that works fine for both teams. The following season for Montreal, they'll have $37.7 million in cap space. Laine's gone. Doxson, RFA can likely just move on from him. The injuries is just too bad. Veleno, easy move off from. Obviously, there's Lane Hudson, who likely could obviously make, 10, 11, 12 million. I don't know, but with their cap space, they can definitely make that work. Jack Eichel won't be too much. Matheson, you can let walk at 4.88 or get on a cheap deal. Sammy Blais, $775K, that's easy. Bolduc, RFA, a little bridge deal. And the following season, they have $72 million cap space, which Demidov is an RFA at that time, and we see what these Russians can be like with their agents. We saw what Kaprizov did after his rookie year. He signed a 5-year at $9 million a year. But again, it turned out to be worth it. And if Demidov can do that, they have the cap space to do it. And I mean, having wingers of Slafkovsky, Caulfield, Demidov, and Kaprizov as your wingers definitely gets me excited. Not as a Leafs fan, but just as a highlights fan. That'd be ridiculous. Their issues is our centerman. They have an elite number one center in Nick Suzuki. And right now their centers are Jake fucking Evans. And I'm not even sure they lost Christian Dvorak. So, yeah, they realistically need center. So hopefully Michael Haig can become that second line center. But, yeah, those wingers in the future just get me going. So, yeah, that's these are the trades that now I'm starting to like for both teams. With these last few, I really like for both sides. So let's get into the next one. So the next trade is the Columbus Blue Jackets. And will Kaprizov want to sign a 4-year, $16 million AAV contract in Columbus? I don't know, but with their cap space, they can probably offer him even more because they have tons of cap space, and maybe they're willing. They need that. They have Fantilli, but they need another superstar, especially on that wing. And Kaprizov is that type of player. So the trade would be this: to Minnesota, Ken Johnson, $1.8 million AAV for 2 more years, and a 2026 first round pick and a 2027 first round pick. So again, going back to the Buffalo trade for Jack Eichel, Alex Tuch. At the time, Tuch was definitely better than Ken Johnson, but Ken Johnson had a massive bounce back year last year, and I still think he can be a 70, 80 plus point player. And then you have 2 first round picks. So obviously Alex Tuch or Peyton Krebs was treated kind of like a first rounder, and they traded a first round pick. So pretty similar terms or similarities in that trade. So I feel like it makes sense for both sides. You have Ken Johnson for 2 more years at just 1.8. For Kaprizov and Columbus in the cap space, they have over $15 million in cap space right now, so that's not an issue whatsoever. Next offseason, you have $46 million in cap space. You have to sign Fantilli. If he blows up this year, hopefully you can get him on a cheap 8-year. It's hard to base a deal off that right now, but maybe lock him in long term. But you definitely have the cap space to do it. I'm gonna butcher this name, but Chinnikov, I'll just fucking say his name, who makes 2.1. He'll likely get a pay bump. I was hearing rumors that he may be on the move as well. Cole Sillinger, Boone Jenner, Charlie Coyle makes $5 million. You can let him walk or sign for a cheaper deal. Boone Jenner's a captain there. I'm sure he'll be willing to take a pay bump or a pay cut. Aston Reese, Branson, these are all guys you can walk off or just sign the cheap deals. The next season, they'll have $74 million in cap space in 27-28. You'll have Voronikov, Marchenko, Matenchuk, Merzlinkin. So definitely a lot more money you'll figure out there. But again, they have tons of cap space. I feel like they'll be. I know they'll be able to figure that out. And then 28-29, they'll have over $80 million in cap space. And you have Zach Werenski, who by that time, maybe that's when the $20 million deals contracts are worth it and are kind of more normal. But yeah, these are the deals that really I make a lot of sense for both teams. For Columbus, you finally get that superstar on forward, and you can play with your future number 1 center in Fantilli. And Minnesota, you still get a very valuable young stud who can fit into your lineup. Play with your young guys you already have, and you get 2 first-round picks for, who knows, maybe Columbus doesn't really play that well. Maybe one of those picks has to be top 10 protected. I don't think Columbus could be that bad, but I like this trade for both sides, and now we're getting the stuff that I hope happens tomorrow, so let's get into the next trade. Now, the next team is the team that has been in the middle of almost every fucking big deal, big trade, big player that's been on the market in the last few years, and yes, that is the Carolina Hurricanes. They're waiting to get over the hump, get to the Stanley Cup Finals. They've been to I don't know how many conference finals the last few years. They have an incredible roster. They just don't have. To me, I love Aho. I love their roster. I love Jackson Blake. I love Stankoven. I love all these guys. They don't have a number 1 guy, and I think, and obviously Kirill Kaprizov is that guy. The trade for me, it's similar to the Columbus trade. It's Andrei Svechnikov, who makes $7.75 million for 4 more years. And a 2026 first-round pick and a 2027 first-round pick. Again, if you're Carolina, who gives a fuck about these first-round picks? This is why I like it for both sides. If you're Minnesota, you still get a really young stud forward. I'm not sure how old he is, but he's still really young. When he's healthy, I know that's a big if, he's a very viable player and can fit into that system. And he's at a fair deal for 4 more years. And again, you get 2 first-round picks that you can either trade with, play with, use, whatever you want. In Carolina, you finally get that superstar locked in at a few more years, unlike Rantanen was. So for Carolina, obviously Minnesota, cap space all works for Svechnikov. He makes less than Kaprizov, so that's no worries there. If you're Hurricanes, they still have $10 million in cap space. That deal year 1 works out just fine. This is where it starts to get a little interesting. In 26-27, they only have $16 million in cap space, right? Really, with the trade, that will be more like under $10 million in cap space. And you'll have to sign Jankowski, which that could just be let walk. Tyson Jost is let walk. Mike Riley let walk. Frederick Anderson, we'll see. Maybe trying to cheap deals because of his injuries, and he's been in Carolina for a long time. And similar to the Demidov situation I was saying, then you have to sign Nikishin, which he could ask for a lot more. But they'll still have the cap space to do it. Again, you'll have just under 10, unless he has a 60-point, 70-point rookie defenseman season. I can't see him asking for too much. Maybe a bridge deal. It all depends on how he does, but the cap space works. And then the following seasons, you have tons of cap space. You have $40 million in cap space the next year and 42 the year after, with not a lot of players assigned in between. Like Martinook makes $3 million, that could be cheaper, or he retires. Saul makes $3 million, same similar thing. Chatfield. So yeah, Carolina again. They've been looking for that superstar player and locked up, unlike Rantanen, for a while. I love Aho. And all these guys are signed for such long terms. They don't have to worry about a player contract for a long time. I like this team for both sides. But now let's get into the juiciest one, the one I love the most. And it's a team who, in my team previews, I have finally making the playoffs for a long time. Let's get into it. All right, finally, the team that I love the most for this trade. Again, do I think he's going to get traded? No. Can I see him leaving and just walking in free agency, signing $30 million a year? Fuck yeah, I can. But if there was a trade, this to me is the most likely, and I think it benefits both teams immensely, and that is the Anaheim Ducks. So Anaheim have tons of cap space. They were willing to pay Marner $14 million. The trade would be to Minnesota, Troy Terry, $7 million AAV for 5 more years. RFA Mason McTavish, who maybe they lock up to an 8x8 right away, or maybe a 5-year, $6.5 million AAV, and a 2026 first-round pick. So for Minnesota, you're going to have to maybe move some money around, because, again, you have $9 million of Kaprizov. You're gaining $2 million with Troy Terry. So that means you have $6 million in cap space. And then you have to sign McTavish. So I think you can kind of work that out, either with a trade or just maybe McTavish is willing to sign a bridge deal with Minnesota. And again, same thing with Kaprizov. He immediately signs that 4-year, $16 million AAV contract. So when you go back to the Buffalo trade, like I said, this is a lot more value, or a good amount more value than that, because Troy Terry, Alex Tuch, very, very similar players at that point in time. You have the first-round pick. And Mason McTavish, he's definitely a lot more. I love Mason McTavish. He's the 3rd overall pick. He's a lot more established than what I think Peyton Krebs played a game yet for Vegas at that time. So it's a lot more value, but it's also the RFA having to sign him and everything like that. So, and again, if you're Anaheim, you need to make these. You're a good team now. You have these pieces, and you have a lot of centers. You have centers with Leo Carlson. You just got Michael Granlund. You had obviously Troy Terry and Mason McTavish. Actually, Troy Terry's a winger, but now you get that stud on the left side, and you have Cutter on the left side as well, or you can play the right. I love this makeup of this team if that's the case. You obviously have Kreider, Killorn. You have Lacombe on the back end. So for cap space, they have tons. Right now, they have $20 million in cap space, so that's no issue. Next year, they'll have 56. So they'll sign like Ryan Poehling, Johnston, obviously Cutter. So they'll have like a record amount of RFAs in 26-27 with that $56 million in cap space with Cutter Gauthier, Leo Carlson, Jackson Lacombe, Owen Zellweger, and Pavel Mintyukov. So basically every RFA on their team is up that year. But again, even with the Kaprizov deal, you still have around $45 or plus million in cap space to work with. And I love this trade for both. I love this trade for both sides. Again, if you're Minnesota, I love their centers with Rossi and Joel Eriksson Ek, but they've been missing that first line center for a long time. I don't think they've ever even really had one, like a true star number 1 center. Mason McTavish, I think, has potential to do that. I love his game. I think he can fit that Minnesota lineup perfectly. Then you still get a very reliable kind of 30 and 30 goal assist guy in Troy Terry at a very solid contract on the wing as well. So you have Rossi, Eriksson Ek, Boldy, Troy Terry, and McTavish, and at Anaheim, you finally get that stud on the wing to play with your superstars in Leo Carlson and Cutter Gauthier, and you have that young back end. You obviously have Dostal locked up too, so I love the trade for both sides. This is by far my favorite one, the one I like the most for both sides. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please comment, like, subscribe to the Buds Mafia podcast on YouTube. Go check out my channels, Buds and Pucks, on Instagram, X, TikTok, all that stuff. Follow on Spotify. Please, like I said, comment, like, subscribe, everything. Let me know in the comments, or let me know what you think of these trades if I'm a fucking idiot. If none of these trades make sense, please have at it. I can take it. So let me know. See you guys next time. And yeah, comment, like, subscribe.
Fakes left, now taken off. Gonna run for it again.